So good afternoon. This is Dr. Alma Nenshi, and I'm from the Chiropractic Wellness Clinic here in Calgary, Alberta. I am so excited about this topic. It's been a topic that I've been wanting to do since we started these webinars in April, because my passion is all about brain health and central nervous system challenges, and I am really keen on trying to share a bunch of information today with you so that you can have some practical tips on how you can help your brain stay healthy. So this workshop is going to be approximately 45 minutes long, and a copy of it will be posted on YouTube after if you want to review. All right. So let's talk about the brain. So the brain is this organ that acts like the main control center of our bodies. It's right up here in our head. It's controlling intelligence. It's controlling all of our senses. We have 7 senses, not just the 5, the smell, taste, hear, hear, sound, taste, smell, and touch. But we also have our balance systems located in our inner ear, and we have something called proprioception, which is the ability to know where your body is in space. So if I take my hand and put it behind my back, I don't feel anything, I can't see it, but I know it's there. So that is proprioception. The brain is also responsible for body movement and behavior. So all in all, it weighs about 3 pounds, so it makes up about 2% of our body weight. And it's only been within the last 10 to 15 years where we really began to understand more about the brain and understand how different areas of the brain work. So the brain can be divided into 3 sections, which is the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. So we're going to take a look at each of these in detail. So the 3 sections are forebrain. So the first section contains, this forebrain is actually the largest, most developed part of the human brain, and it houses the cerebrum, which is your thinking, conscious part of the brain. Your midbrain is the upper part of the brain stem, and your hindbrain contains the upper part of the spinal cord, the brainstem, and tissues in the back of the brain called the cerebellum. So these 3 primary parts of the brain, the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem, are really important for various different functions in the body. So I'm going to go into a little bit more brain anatomy. That might be a little too detailed, but I think it's really important to understand these areas. The cerebrum, which is this part of the brain, is divided into 4 lobes. You've got the frontal lobe, which is primarily the main thinking, reasoning, those types of functions. You've got the parietal lobe, which is the area of the brain that receives information from the body and the environment. The temporal lobe, which is right here just behind where our ears are. And then your occipital lobe, which is in the very back. The cerebrum is the largest part of the brain, and it's comprised of the right and the left hemispheres. The brainstem includes 3 structures: the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla, and off of each of these areas are various nerves that exit out and innervate all of the structures of your face and your head. So we're looking at nerves that control eye movement and hearing and smell, and even, the big muscle in your mouth, the tongue, for you to be able to speak. So there's a lot of complex structures within the brain stem and what it controls. The cerebellum, this is located under the cerebrum in the back, and between the cerebrum and the brainstem, there is a structure. There are 2 structures that are very important. These are the thalamus and the hypothalamus. So the cerebral cortex covers the whole surface of the cerebrum and the cerebellum. Okay, so I hope that gives you a little bit about the anatomy. I know it's quite detailed, but I love this stuff, so I had to include it. Now let's talk a little bit more about functions of these areas. So the forebrain, which is your cerebrum, it holds the frontal lobe, so that's where your memories are for helping you plan and imagine and think. The parietal lobe is everything about your senses, so touch, vision, hearing, speech, reasoning, emotions, that's all parietal lobe, and it's really important for spatial orientation and navigation. The temporal lobe is where you process sound and language, and it houses the hippocampus and amygdala, which is very important structures that are involved with memory and emotion. The occipital lobe, which is right in the back, that's used for visual processing, and it allows you to, read books, recognize people, and those types of functions. So that's all of the forebrain. The midbrain relays information between the brain and the rest of the body. So it's that intermediate structure. And it controls automatic functions such as breathing and heart rate, body temperature. These are all things that are controlled in the brain stem. The hindbrain, which is way in the back, this is the cerebellum, and it coordinates muscle movements and any type of motor control to maintain posture and balance. So if I want to reach to pick something up, I'm going to pick up my mouse. If I pick up my mouse, I can pick it up in a smooth manner. Or if my coordination of my muscles are not good, I might start noticing that I can't quite hold that mouse in place properly or in a nice balanced way. So that's where the cerebellum, the control of the order of the muscles that are contracting in your body. The thalamus, remember we talked about that just briefly, it relays sensory and motor signals to the cortex, and it's involved in regulating your consciousness. It helps you with sleep. It helps you with being alert. And then there is another structure called the hypothalamus, and it connects the nervous system to your endocrine system, your hormones, where hormones are produced through the pituitary gland. And then the cerebral cortex is where most of the information is actually processed in the brain, and that's all at the top. Okay? So, those of you who have come to my other lectures in my clinic, you may have heard me speak about left brain and right brain. The human brain is divided into the left and the right hemispheres and is connected by a bundle of nerve fibers that are called the corpus callosum. And when how Einstein was really smart, when they really examined his brain, they noticed that he had quite a dense number of connecting fibers between the left and right brain. And it was these connecting fibers, not the size of his brain, but these connections that people think, scientists think actually was what made him so smart. So it's important to have a balance between the left brain and the right brain. We don't want to have dominance on any one side. There's a Nobel Prize winner, his name is Dr. Roger Sperry, and in 1981 he originated this left brain, right brain theory that describes how different parts of the brain are responsible for different functions. And so we'll go into that a little bit right now. The left brain, these are people who are very logical, analytical, objective. People who have a dominant left brain might tend to be very good at language and logic and critical thinking, numbers, reasoning, all of that stuff. On the other side, the right brain thinkers are more intuitive and thoughtful and subjective. Traits of the right brain include facial recognition, emotion, expression, music, reading, color, imagination, intuition, and creativity. Okay. So why is brain health so important? A healthy brain functions quickly and automatically. And Dr. Roger Sperry actually had said that the spine is the motor of the brain. And that movement in the spine is what actually contributes to 90% of the stimulation that you receive in the brain. So 90% of stimulation and nutrition that goes to the brain is controlled by movement in the spine. This person actually had to be he's a neurologist, but he's speaking in chiropractic language, that we need to have healthy movement in order to keep stimulating the brain. So neurological disorders occur when there are diseases in the brain and the spine and the nerves that are connecting them. And the National Institute of Neurological Disorders report the following common disorders. I'm just going to read them out. There are neurogenic disorders like Huntington's disease and muscular dystrophy. There are developmental disorders such as cerebral palsy, degenerative diseases in adult life such as Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease. There are metabolic diseases, there are cerebrovascular diseases. Cerebrovascular diseases could be stroke or dementia from lack of oxygen to certain areas of the brain. Traumas such as spinal cord traumas and head injuries. Convulsive disorders such as epilepsy. You have infectious diseases that can affect the brain such as AIDS and brain tumors. So let's take a look at some of these in more detail. I'd like to talk a little bit about dementia because it's considered a cerebrovascular disease, but it's not a specific disease. It's a general term that describes a decline in your mental ability. So dementia describes a wide range of symptoms, and for a condition to be considered dementia, at least 2 of the following must be significantly impaired. So you need, if someone has poor memory, poor communication and language, a poor ability to focus and pay attention to things, poor reasoning and judgment, or poor visual perception. Any 2 of those together can help us diagnose whether you have dementia. So dementia is caused by brain cell damage, which impairs communication in the brain, and it may cause short-term memory loss, and many forms of dementia can be progressive, and that just basically means that the symptoms worsen as the person ages. And there is unfortunately no cure for dementia. Some treatment options are available, but I think that if we can focus on some prevention strategies that involve your cardiovascular risk factors, your physical exercise and diet, then you'll be able to prepare your body and try and delay that from occurring. Alzheimer's is a degenerative disease and the most common form of dementia, causing problems with memory, thinking, and behavior. So there's about 1 in 10 people over the age of 65 in the United States that has Alzheimer's. And early onset of Alzheimer's basically affects about 200,000 Americans under the age of 65. So these are American stats. Minor changes in the brain occur long before the symptoms show. So things that you can do, the prevention factors, is very important to understand that an overconsumption of fat and carbohydrate are probably the reason why there's so many Alzheimer's cases that are occurring. So your risk of Alzheimer's is doubled in type 2 diabetes, and heart disease also increases your risk of dementia because the arterial stiffness is associated with a buildup of what's called beta amyloid plaques in your brain, and that is what you actually see on an MRI of people who have Alzheimer's disease. You see these plaquings, amyloid plaques in the brain when you do brain MRIs. Strokes, these are considered an attack on the brain, and strokes are caused when there is an obstruction of blood flow to the brain, and that causes the brain cells to die as a result of lack of oxygen. And the effects of stroke are dependent on where exactly it is happening in the brain because different areas of the brain have different functions. So if you had a stroke on one side of the brain, because the pathways for how the brain signals the body for movement cross, then you would usually see symptoms on the opposite side. So for example, a stroke occurring on the right side might lead to paralysis on the left side of the body, vision problems, memory loss, those types of things. And a stroke on the left side may lead to paralysis on the right side of the body. And because the left side of the brain is all about speech and language, you might notice a difference in how well those functions are. And you may start noticing a slow, cautious behavior. You might notice memory loss. So a few facts about strokes. 800,000 newer recurring strokes happen annually. So this is a large number of people who are having strokes. And about 80% of strokes can be prevented. So strokes are the 5th leading cause of death in the United States, and it is the leading cause of all adult disability. So this is a very important thing to realize, that we can actually prevent strokes by modifying our lifestyles. And I hope that you'll learn a few things on what you can do to help your brain be healthier. So as a parent or grandparent, obviously we want to have the best for our children or our grandchildren. So there are suggestions for neurological problem preventions from energyconnectiontherapies.com. And from a nutritional standpoint, you want to provide local, if possible, organic produce that can reduce the intake of pesticides. You want to ensure that your child is drinking plenty of water in order to help with detoxing functions in the body, and trying to avoid heavily processed foods and trans fats, high sugar content, and artificial sweeteners. We want to try and encourage a toxin-free environment, so using natural cleaners around the home, avoiding fabrics that are treated with flame retardants and chemicals. You want to try and look for natural fiber furniture if possible. There are skin irritants that, like sunscreens, for example, that have a lot of chemicals. You may be able to find something that was a more natural sunscreen that would avoid exposure to these chemicals. Some people use cloth diapers rather than the regular diapers in order to reduce the chemicals that are in those diapers that's function is to keep the wetness away from the skin. For dentistry, there are holistic dentists that you can talk to and consult with. You can avoid the overuse of fluoride, and people are removing mercury-containing fillings out of their mouth. As for healthy development, we want to encourage frequent physical activity. You want to do brain gym exercises that involve cross-crawling or things that use both sides of the body at the same time, again, to integrate those fibers between the left and the right brain. And the biggest thing that I think is important here is to limit screen time, TV, computers, etc., because they do not stimulate the brain. There are a number of lifestyle habits we can all adopt in order to maintain our brain health, and they're broken down into 4 categories. You got physical health and exercise, diet and nutrition, cognitive activity, and social engagement. So all 4 of these can help you keep your body and your brain healthy and reduce your risk for cognitive decline. And research has found that if you combine these activities, then you've got a greater impact on improving your brain health than just by doing one of these. So let's talk about these. Many studies have found that there's an association between physical activity and reducing cognitive decline. So if you engage in regular physical activity and cardiovascular exercise, it's going to elevate your heart rate and your blood flow, and it will increase the amount of oxygen that's going to the brain. So physical activities that can be both mentally and socially engaging. You can try going for a walk with a friend. You can take dance classes. My husband and I do ballroom dancing, or at least we did before COVID. So there's dance classes. You can join an exercise group, golfing, tennis. When the pool's open, you can consider going and swimming, walking your dog, going for a bike ride. The World Health Organization recommends adults between 18 to 65 should do about 150 minutes of exercise a day. And aerobic activity should be performed in at least 10-minute sessions, at least 2 days a week for muscle strengthening activities. And yeah, so we want to try and be as active as possible. And if you set aside specific times in your schedule and schedule these activities in, that's a great tip in trying to incorporate it on a regular basis. You can try and use a little bit more walking or cycling to nearby areas rather than hopping in your car. And even just chores in the house, vacuuming, cleaning, these types of things get you up and moving, so that also helps to increase your heart rate. So anything that increases your heart rate is good because it increases oxygen to all of your tissues and especially to your brain. So another thing that you can do that can help you with reducing your risk for cognitive decline is to stimulate your brain. Go to the library or community centers or rec centers and start to read or read more. You can look at things online. You can find a bunch of different topics that you would like to learn. Pick anything that you're interested in. Reading is excellent for helping to improve your brain function because it exercises your eye muscles. And picking something that you can read that is new and interesting stimulates the right brain, while the reading itself stimulates the left brain. So there's a way to exercise both aspects. One thing that I do actually in the evenings when I want to unwind is I just take some yarn and I start crocheting. So sometimes you can do these mind-numbing activities, but you can learn patterns, and trying to increase fine motor control of your fingers is a really great way of helping to stimulate the brain, because there's something called a homunculus, which is basically an image that describes how your brain is using its resources for different areas of the body. And the motor homunculus uses a lot of its brain resources on controlling your fingers and controlling your speech. And so anything that helps you with exercising those structures that are really favorite structures of the brain is also going to help improve brain function. Smoking. I always talk about this because it's such a simple thing to do. Evidence shows that smoking increases your risk of cognitive decline, and it's an expensive and really tough habit that some people have a tough time breaking. However, it needs to be done. We need people to stop smoking because that's how you extend health in your body. Smoking robs your body of oxygen, and oxygen is a vital nutrient to keep your brain tissues healthy. So just decide if you are smoking or you know someone that is smoking, let's try and help them quit. So there's some tips. You can, really focus on what exactly is going to motivate you to quit smoking. What is the reason why you want to quit smoking? It might be cognitive decline. It might be something else. So we need to be clear on what that reason is. And then be prepared, because while some people can quit cold turkey, other people have trouble doing that. So we need to have a support group in place for quitting. And then you may want to have a replacement that you can use. There's nicotine gum and other things that can be used to try and curb those withdrawal symptoms. And finding ways to help reduce stress, because sometimes people smoke because they're stressed and that's what they go to. So finding other things that can help you to reduce stress, mindful meditations, things like that can also help. And because smoking is a habit, breaking the habit is the hardest thing. So if you smoke whenever you go and you pick up the phone, or if someone smokes every time they light up as soon as they get in the car before they turn their ignition on, all you have to do is break that habit. So instead, wait until the phone call is completely finished and then light up only if you have to, or only if you really, really want to. Otherwise, don't do it. So just trying to find and break that habit or those triggers is something that will help. By taking care of your heart, your brain is more likely to follow. The studies show that risk factors for cardiovascular disease and stroke, which are obesity, high blood pressure, and diabetes, they negatively impact your cognitive health. So protecting your brain by protecting your heart and maintaining your blood pressure, having healthy cholesterol and healthy blood sugar is something that's going to sustain a healthy weight and will help your brain. So healthy diet and regular exercise is the key here. And let's talk a little bit about cholesterol, because I think people don't understand that cholesterol is actually not a bad thing. It's only a bad thing when you have a lot of the bad cholesterol. So cholesterol is a substance that basically flows in the blood, and it's needed to build cells. And it comes from animal-based foods such as meat and dairy. So if you want to reduce your cholesterol, you can change your diet. Cholesterol is made up in the liver, and there are two types of cholesterol. You've got the low-density lipoprotein, which is the LDL, and then you've got the high-density lipoprotein, which is the HDL. And low density, think of lousy, low, bad protein, because it is the type of cholesterol that causes the buildup inside your arteries. The healthy cholesterol, the high density, healthy HH, this is a good cholesterol because it takes the LDL away and removes it. So there are ratios that you can see in your blood work. So just check with your doctor next time you have a blood test and see what your ratios are. And they'll tell you whether you have enough high density lipoprotein to counter the effects of the LDL. And one way of building HDL is through physical activity. You can make more HDL in your body by being physically active. Blood pressure, these are two numbers. You have the systolic, which is the upper number, and the diastolic, which is a lower number. So the systolic blood pressure is basically how much pressure is in your blood that is exerting against your artery walls when the heart is beating. So it's like the upper amount of pressure that those arteries can take. And then the diastolic blood pressure is how much your blood is pressing against the artery walls when your heart is resting between those beats. So it's the lower blood pressure. And typically the top number is most important, and normal levels should be around that 120 over 80. So your systolic should be around 120, and then the diastolic should be between 60 to 80. Anything over 80, It's a signal. It's a warning sign. Anything over 120, it's a warning sign. So pay attention to your blood pressure. And anytime you come into the office, if you want us to check your blood pressure, we'd be happy to do that for you. Obviously, it's important to take safety precautions wherever possible because we want to protect our brain. Our brain is enclosed in this big skull, but even trauma to the head can cause injuries to the brain tissue, even if you have protection. So we want to do whatever we can to cushion or protect that area. So you need to use a helmet when you're riding your bikes. You want to wear a seat belt when you're in the car so that you're not thrown and hitting your head on the steering wheel in case of an accident. And then take steps to prevent falls. Now, falls are really important because as you get older and as your nervous system starts to decline, you're going to have an issue with your balance. And so we have a technology in our office that's called B-Tracks. It's a balance tracks machine that you stand on and you can practice your balance. It's got a ton of sensors on it and it will tell you how balanced you are and how coordinated you are. So you can come in and we can do a test, a baseline test to see what your risk for falls are. And then we can use that technology to actually train your balance. If you exercise something that you're having trouble with, that part will get stronger. So if you notice you have challenges with balance right now, exercising it now will prevent it from getting worse as you get older. And there's certain things that can contribute to whether you are at a higher risk for falls or not. Inactivity is huge when it comes to being one of the causes for reduced balance and coordination and flexibility. So even low impact activity like yoga can help to reduce your risk. So you need to have your body moving in order to fire the brain and stimulate the brain so that the brain knows how to control the muscles and posture and activity. Poor vision as well. So if you've got poor vision, that can make tripping hazards and you may have a hard time seeing obstacles. So you need to make sure that you've got appropriate prescriptions, and sometimes you can get over-the-counter medications that will also contribute to falls because they can cause dizziness and dehydration. So think about staying hydrated. Think about maybe putting a wedge of lemon or an orange or something citrus in your water when you're drinking it so it gives you extra electrolytes. And always remember to get up from seated position and move around. Remember that doctor, that neurologist, Dr. Roger Sperry, who won the Nobel Prize for his work on the brain, to, what he said about the spine being the motor for the brain. So that physical movement is so critical. And of course, get in for your chiropractic adjustments. Let's just make sure every single segment of your spine is moving in the way that it should be. You need to sleep in order to have a healthy brain. So not getting enough sleep due to conditions like insomnia or sleep apnea can result in problems with your memory and thinking. So examples of medical conditions that can cause insomnia are nasal and sinus allergies, arthritis in your neck that doesn't allow the flexibility to open the airway. If you remember in CPR, the first thing to open the airway is that head tilt. And if you have arthritis, it's hard to get flexibility in your neck to open up the airways. Asthma, chronic pain, and even lower back pain can cause insomnia because the pain can keep you up at night. So one of the things you can do to get a better night's sleep is to just try creating a healthy bedtime routine. So avoid using your computer and phone right before bed. Try and incorporate some stretches before your bedtime. A warm bath or a hot shower raises your temperature. So when your temperature starts to cool, we talked about this in one of our previous workshops, When your body cools, that's an optimum way of getting into a deep sleep. Meditation can help, reading can help, and definitely avoid caffeinated beverages later in the day. The studies show that there is an association between depression and an increased risk for cognitive decline. So managing your stress can help reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety and other mental health concerns. So there are many techniques that you can try for managing stress. The physical activity releases these feel-good endorphins. Deep breathing exercises can increase oxygen in your body and lower cortisol levels, which is cortisol is the hormone that's released from the adrenal glands in response to stress. Yoga and deep breathing, again, can help with stress. And of course, mindfulness and meditation. Some people use essential oils like lavender that can help to calm stress down. And some people just have recurring thoughts and they're not able to get out of their perseverating thoughts. So one way of helping you with that is to journal. If you have a journaling time that you set out in your day where everything that's stressful, you just journal it, then you don't have to constantly relive it in your mind. You can say, hey, I already have it written down somewhere. I don't have to physically think about it because all of my feelings and everything are all in this book, and I'm going to put this book away, and whenever I want to relive those feelings, I can read them. I don't have to keep thinking about them over and over. So journaling is a great release for some people in dealing with stress. Being socially engaged can help you support your brain function. So do social activities that are meaningful for you. Find a way to be a part of your local community, volunteering. You can, do reading at the library. I mean, there's lots of different things that require help. Different organizations, nonprofit organizations that require help. Get engaged and use that. Even animal shelters are looking for people to come in and help look after the animals, and just spending some time with an animal is a great way of having that interaction. It may not be with another person, but interactions in general are so important. So don't forget to be involved and to get involved with the community. Mentally challenging activities are great for keeping your mind sharp. So you may have short or long-term benefits when you try a new skill. So working on a puzzle, doing strategic type games, learning how to play an instrument, do something that's artistic like painting or coloring or scrapbooking. And then don't just read the same genre books, maybe just look at different genres of books that you can read to expand all the new information you can read. And also journaling and creating poetry, and all of these things are mentally challenging activities. Brain food. Nutrition is a huge part of any health regimen, and especially for brain health. So typically eating a well-balanced diet that includes a high intake of fruits and vegetables, low in fat and sugar, can reduce the risk for cognitive decline. So the Mediterranean diet would be an example. It's a heart-healthy diet that can help protect the brain and incorporate different principles of healthy eating that are found in areas bordering the Mediterranean Sea. So focus on fruits and vegetables and nuts and grains. Replace your butter with healthy fats such as olive oil or coconut oil. Reduce red meat intake. Use herbs to flavor food rather than salt. Eat fish, at least white fish, twice a week. And you could do one white fish and one fatty fish, but eat fish at least twice a week. I'm going to go on to supplements. Supplements can help to improve cognitive function, and there's research that talks about specific benefits of having fish oils in your diet. They are essential for maintaining the structure and function of your brain, and they have a host of anti-inflammatory effects. Resveratrol is a powerful antioxidant that's found in deep purple and red colored fruits, and it can help to prevent the deterioration of the hippocampus where your memories are stored. Ginkgo biloba is an herbal supplement that can increase blood flow, and of course, since a lot of your blood flow goes to the brain, it can increase oxygen to the brain and therefore increase brain power. And so these are a few things that are, I think, really important and easily attainable in the natural food stores if you're interested in learning more. So I have a bunch of resources that I will post when we put the recording on YouTube, and when I send out the follow-up email to all of you that has the link to the YouTube video, I will include the resources there. Take some time to look at the resources and to explore some of the different we have brain games and guided visualization and so many different things that I'm going to include here as part of your resources that you can explore. I want to thank you for being part of the workshop today. I hope you learned a lot of good information. We tried to make it practical as well as quite in depth with the different structures of the brain. If you ever want to speak to me about any questions or concerns, don't hesitate to call. Our website is calgarywellness.com, and I'm always here to help. I know that in this time when people are physical distancing, people are a little bit apprehensive to get out, but you remember that the power that made the body heals the body. And if we are able to embrace healing from the inside out, that helps us be functionally more healthy. So watch your diet, have healthy social relationships, look after your family, be happy. These are all things that we can do, and of course, come in for your chiropractic care. So I thank you so much for being part of the workshop today, and I look forward to seeing you next week for the next workshop.